Space Marine Deredeo Pattern Dreadnought, Construction and Unit Review. Well, thank you for joining me. This video continues on from my last video where we unpacked and unboxed this and had a look at the actual parts of this model. This review, I'm going to talk to you about the construction and then review the actual in-game performance of the Deredeo. So let's just have a quick look around the miniature. This sits on a 60mm base. It's a lovely model. So let's jump right in and get up close and have a look at some of the features here. So if you watch the original unpacking review, you'll remember that I talked about boring out the muzzle brakes on the autocannon barrels, and I went ahead, decided, and I was going to do that. I went ahead and did it, and the results are very good. I used a drill bit and a pin vise to do it, so it was all done by hand. There was no powered tools involved there. Then use a craft knife to cut out the baffles on the side of the, well, not baffles, the apertures on the sides of muzzle brakes. So that worked really nicely. Did a similar thing on the chest-mounted heavy bolt guns. They always look good if you can bore the barrels out. It adds, it just brings out the detail a bit more. You may remember that there's two weapon options here, as well as the heavy bolt guns. You also get the choice of a twin-linked heavy flamer. We'll consider which of those are the best in the actual unit review section. So a few of the observations on the actual build. Pinning, I pinned the ankles, the knee, a pin all the way across the hips. I put one long pin through this leg to hold it all together. These big chunky ammunition feeds which connect the Anvilus autocannon to the ammunition hopper or ammunition bin, those you have to heat up either using a hairdryer or hot water to get them soft and then bend them into position. A word of advice when you're doing that: these ammo ejector covers and these recoil buffers are very delicate, sensitive parts, and if you've heated up the autocannon, particularly with a hairdryer, which is a bit more, shall I say, indiscriminate than immersing this in hot water, if these are softened, you just want to be careful not to crush the details while you're manipulating the weapon. So that's one to just bear in mind. Let's you notice how I've not stuck this the ALOS missile battery in place yet. I'm just waiting for a couple of magnets. I'm going to put one in here and then one in the actual torso mount as well. That's for two reasons. First, for transport. Secondly, I may want to mount an alternative weapon in the future, and there is an option, so we'll come to that a bit later. This is very nice, the actual missile battery itself. I'm holding it with a bit of tap there, but it does pivot very nicely as well. So a little bit of a, if you build carefully, you can have that posability. Excuse me. I'm just using a bit of tack to hold it at the moment while I decide on the final position to stick it in. But yeah, very nice. Looks great. You may have noticed that that's not the standard Deredeo pattern Dreadnought head, and it isn't. It's that's the head from the Iron Hands Contemptor Dreadnought, which I've put in there. I bought an Iron Hands Contemptor some time ago, and I put the standard head in it just to make it look a bit different, give it a bit of variety, and I've been saving the head since. When I got the Deredeo, I thought, oh, this is perfect. So it's got this like targeting optic on the side of the head, which is very similar to the sort of targeting optics you get on some of the Iron Hands Space Marine head models, I'd used those for all my heavy support marines. So as this is a fire support Dreadnought, I thought I'd keep that sort of thematic look going. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Just for completeness, here is the actual Dreadnought head that comes with the model. Looks a bit like a Mark 7 helmet, shall we say? But that also, that's a very nice looking head, that as well. So yeah, that's everything I want to say about the actual construction. I think just to finish on the construction, it went together very well. It's a good fun build. As you can see, lots of posability. I've got rather like the pose I got on the end of it. It makes me think a bit like something from perhaps Macross or Gundam, that sort of style. And an interesting point on the Deredeo Dreadnought, it has no skulls on it whatsoever, which is unusual for anything A, Imperial, and particularly B, Space Marine. So it is skull free. I guess you can always add more skulls if you want to. I'm going to keep mine skull free. Okay, let's talk about the actual in-game performance. So the Deredeo Dreadnought is a heavy support choice for the Space Marine Legion. You can also use it in Warhammer 40,000 games, in Marine lists, using the Relic of the Armoury rule. What's this mainly about? So heavy support choice. So the heavy support slot is always a very busy slot in Legion army. So you want to have units that really pull their weight, and this one does in a number of ways. So the first thing of note is it has the helical targeting array, which confers it the Interceptor and Skyfire special rule if it doesn't move. So it's an extremely effective way of combating enemy flyers and aircraft. And in particular, that works very nicely with the weapons I chose, which is the Anvilus autocannon battery, which is a twin-linked strength 8 autocannon with the Sunder special rule. Sunder means you re-roll failed armor penetration rolls. And then the Aeolus missile battery. The Aeolus is a heavy 3, range 60 inches, so very long range weapon. There's not many games, not many weapons in the game that have such range. Strength 6 AP3 has a special rule called independent tracking. It means you always attack the side armor of a target, or infantry always count as being in open terrain, if I remember rightly. And you can shoot at a separate target. So you can basically shoot at things that are out of sight with that. Very handy. So yeah, it's a very good anti-air unit, good against a lot of other targets as well. I'll talk about that later in a bit more detail. Armour 13 on the front, 12 on the side, 11 on the rear. It has an adamantic shield, so 5+ invulnerable save at range, 6+ in close combat. It's got a secondary weapon system on the torso. So yes, a heavy bolt as we talked about earlier. So that's a twin-linked heavy bolt gun. I think it works quite nicely to add to the long-range fire support capability of the Dreadnought. Works quite well. You know, you can strength 5 on a heavy bolter. You can penetrate, well, probably glance certain flyers, penetrate some. So it works well with the autocannon and missile batteries in that regard, and effective against infantry as well. Now you remember we talked about the alternate weapon, heavy flamers. Most of the time I would steer clear of the heavy flamers as a secondary weapon system, just because this is long range Dreadnought. It's no good in close combat, so you don't want to get anywhere near the enemy. Perhaps if you were going for some other weapon mixes where you get closer and it's a good option. Also, if you're playing, say, Salamanders or Death Guard, which have special rules around heavy flamers and flamers in general, it might be worth considering them because of those additional capabilities. Let's just talk now about the weapon options, because there are some others. As well as the Anvilus autocannon, there's two other options on the arms. The first is the Hellfire Plasma Carronade. So that's range 36, strength 7 AP2. It's twin-linked again. Doesn't have gets hot, so it's a long-ranged, accurate plasma fire, so great for dealing with Terminators and lighter vehicles. You get 2 fire modes. You get sustained and then maximal. Maximal replaces the heavy 4 with a large blast template. Also gets hot as well. For those of us who remember the original Rogue Trader game, you might remember sustained and maximal fire for the original heavy plasma gun. So a nice little nod there on the part of the rules writers to the early game. Right, then there's another option on the arms, which is introduced in the most recent edition of the the Crusade Legion list, and that is the Arachnus Heavy Las Cannon Battery. It's range 48. It's a strength 10 AP2 light scanner, so very hard hitting. It has a rule called Exo Shock, which allows you to do additional damage if you score a penetrating hit. So if you really want to hit hard, that is your option. It's not twin link though, so you haven't got the accuracy of the main weapon system. There is an option as well up top, which isn't actually a weapon, but it's a defensive system, and that is the Atomantic Pavice, or Pavice, depending on how you're pronouncing it. The Atomantic Pavice increases the invulnerable save of the Deredeo up to a 4+, from a 5+, and it also grants an additional 1 point on an invulnerable save to any model stood within 3 inches. So, for example, I can think of a couple of really good synergies. So if you have a Tyrant Terminator squad from the Iron Hands Legion, obviously also equipped with Tempest missile launchers, sit those with this guy and they get a very impressive 3+ invulnerable save. You can do the same thing with the, I just forget the name, but the special range fire support Terminator squad for the Ultramarine Legion as well. That would work equally well there. So, what do I think this will be good against? Well, anything softer than a Land Raider, this particular weapon mixed with the autocannon and missile battery would be very good. Predators, Vindicators, you're going to score plenty of damage without, and quite consistently as well. I also think this is going to be, and I'll be using this to oppose enemy Night Titans as well, because the Strength 8 autocannons are going to get some regular penetrating hits on their frontal armour, and the airless missile system can hit them on the side, and although you can only score a glancing hit, you will bypass their ion shield unless they've chosen to face it in another direction, which I don't think will happen. So I can see it being effective against all types of Night Titans as well. So I think that's everything I'd like to say about the Deredeo Dreadnought. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the section below and I'll be happy to answer them. And thank you for listening.